There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that not all storms arrive to clear your path. Some arrive to confuse it. Some people walk into your world and bring out your light, and some walk in and slowly dim without ever striking a match. And the truth is, handling toxic people isn't about being clever, strategic, or superior. It's about being grounded enough in yourself that you refuse to abandon your own emotional well-being. Awareness is the first form of protection because it allows you to see clearly what your emotions are trying to tell you long before your mind has the language for it. Most people think boundaries start with words, but they actually start with noticing quietly, internally, without confrontation. Awareness is the moment you feel your stomach tighten during a certain conversation, and instead of dismissing it, you pause and ask yourself why. It's the moment you recognize that your mood drops after being around someone, not because of something you did wrong, but because their presence consistently demands more than your emotional capacity can offer. Awareness is paying attention to patterns instead of isolated incidents. Toxicity rarely shows itself through one big explosion. It often reveals itself through the slow erosion of your peace. Comments that sting but are disguised as jokes, support that's conditional, apologies that never come, or conversations where you walk away feeling smaller. Emotional awareness lets you identify these patterns before they leave deeper wounds. It allows you to name what's happening instead of gaslighting yourself into staying quiet. Many people stay in harmful dynamics not because they are weak, but because they are unaware. They don't realize how much they are shrinking, overworking, or emotionally carrying someone else until exhaustion becomes their normal state. Awareness interrupts that cycle. When you begin to notice that you are constantly justifying someone's behavior, or that you feel guilty for things that shouldn't require guilt, or that you are always bracing for next unpredictable reaction, you begin to understand that something is off, not with you, but with the dynamic. Awareness is also about recognizing your own patterns, not just someone else's behavior. It's noticing why do certain people get access to you, why you overextend, or why you stay quiet to maintain peace that never really exists. Self-awareness allows you to see the places where you abandon yourself, where you suppress your needs, ignore your instincts, or tolerate disrespect because you're afraid of conflict, rejection, or disappointment. Emotional intelligence begins the moment you stop blaming yourself for someone else's behavior and start listening to your inner cues instead. Awareness gives you choices. When you see clearly, you get to decide how much of yourself you give, how often you engage, and what boundaries you put in place. Without awareness, you react. With awareness, you respond intentionally. And that difference is everything. Protection doesn't come from being guarded or defensive. It comes from being conscious, present, and honest with yourself first. The truth is, you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Awareness doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't require dramatic exit. It simply requires you to trust your inner signals more than someone else's excuses. Once you learn to do that, you protect yourself not by force, but by clarity. And clarity is one of the most powerful forms of freedom you can ever claim. Boundaries are a form of self-respect because they communicate without needing explanation or apology that your well-being matters. Many people grow up believing that being easygoing, endlessly available, and constantly accommodating makes them good, lovable, or worthy. But over time, they discover that constantly themselves to fit other people's expectations leaves them emotionally drained, quietly resentful, and disconnected from their own needs. Boundaries become the bridge back to yourself. They are not barriers meant to shut people out. They are guidelines that protect your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. When you set a boundary, you're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I care about me too. It is an act of reclaiming space in a world that often benefits from you having none. People who struggle with boundaries often fear disappointing others or being seen as difficult, but the truth is that the people who love you and respect you will adjust. Those who resist your boundaries are usually the ones who benefited most from you not having them. Boundaries teach others how to treat you. If you allow someone to interrupt you repeatedly, overstep your limits, or disregard your feelings, they will naturally continue. Not because they are always malicious, but because humans operate within the rules they're given. A boundary communicates those rules. It tells others how to interact with you in a way that preserves the relationship instead of damaging it. Without boundaries, resentment grows silently in the background, poisoning even your closest connections. With boundaries, you create the possibility for healthier, more sustainable relationships where both people's needs matter. Setting boundaries is not loud or aggressive. It often looks like simple, calm clarity. I'm not available for that. I can't take this on right now. This doesn't work for me. It is firm, steady communication that protects your internal world. And sometimes boundaries are not spoken at all. They're behavioral. You respond less. You step back. You create distance where disrespect has been normalized. You stop engaging in conversations that drain you. You stop participating in dynamics that require you to abandon yourself. Boundaries are also a form of emotional maturity. They require you to know your limits, honor your needs, and take responsibility for your own well-being instead of blaming others for crossing lines you never expressed. They allow you to stay kind without being depleted, supportive without being used, and compassionate without becoming a vessel for someone else's chaos. Perhaps the most powerful part of boundaries is how they reshape your identity. Every time you set a boundary, You reinforce the belief that you are worthy of respect, safety, and peace. You teach yourself that your feelings matter, that your needs are valid, and that you don't have to overextend to earn connection. Boundaries don't push people away. They protect the parts of you that should have never been compromised in the first place. They are not about controlling others. They are about taking ownership of your own life. And that is one of the deepest expressions of self-respect you can ever offer yourself. Toxicity feeds on over-explaining and self-doubt because it thrives in environments where you question your worth and feel the need to justify your existence. People with toxic patterns rely on subtle manipulations, mixed signals, shifting expectations, and emotional unpredictability that push you to a constant state of proving, defending, or apologizing. The more you try to make them understand your intentions, the more they twist the story. The more you try to clarify your feelings, the more they invalidate them. Over time, you begin to believe that if you could just explain yourself better, stay calmer, or be more patient, the dynamic would improve. But this is the trap. Your explanations don't create understanding, they create power for the other person. When you over-explain, you open the door for someone to rewrite your reality. Toxic people rarely accept your explanations with empathy. Instead, they use them as tools to manipulate, to confuse you further, or to shift blame. Every unnecessary explanation gives them more material to twist your words, more emotional access to weaponize, and more opportunities to make you doubt your intentions or your memory. Before you realize it, you're spending emotional energy trying to justify things that shouldn't need justification. Your boundaries, your feelings, your time, your preferences, even your silence. Self-doubt becomes the soil where toxicity grows its roots. Toxic people rarely attack your confidence directly. Instead, they plant small seeds of uncertainty. They question your reactions. They dismiss your concerns. They joke about things that actually hurt you. They respond with irritation when you express a need. Slowly, you begin to wonder if you're being too sensitive, too demanding, too emotional, or too much. This internal questioning becomes a quiet betrayal of yourself. When you doubt your own perception, you become easier to control. The most damaging part is that self-doubt makes you believe the problem is within you, not within the dynamic. You begin to monitor your tone, rehearse what you'll say, or walk on eggshells trying to prevent conflict. You over-explain to preempt misunderstanding. You over-apologize to avoid tension. You shrink to keep the peace. And the more you do, the more power toxicity gains. Not because the toxic person is strong, but because your self-trust is weakened. But the truth is simple: people who respect you don't require endless explanations. They don't demand emotional labor for basic understanding. They don't make you question your worth for having needs or boundaries. Healthy relationships make room for clarity. Toxic ones demand justification. Breaking this cycle begins with one shift: trusting yourself, your instincts, trusting your feelings, trusting that you don't need a courtroom-level defense to honor your limits. When you stop over-explaining, something really powerful happens. When you stop doubting yourself, you reclaim your life. And the moment you stop feeding toxicity with your emotional energy, it loses its power. You can stay kind without staying available, because kindness is a reflection of your character, while availability is a reflection of your boundaries. Many people confuse the two and end up sacrificing their emotional well-being in an attempt to be good. They worry that stepping back makes them cold, that saying no makes them harsh, or that protecting their time makes them selfish. But kindness was never meant to require self-abandonment. The truth is, you can hold compassion in your heart while still choosing distance. You can care about someone's struggles without letting them drain your energy. You can wish someone well without offering unlimited access to your life. Staying kind simply means refusing to let someone else's behavior harden you. It means you don't resort to cruelty, bitterness, or revenge, even when someone has made things difficult. But kindness does not mean you have to show up for conversations that exhaust you, or respond to every message immediately, or keep investing in relationships that consistently hurt you. Kindness does not demand proximity. It never has. Being less available is not an act of punishment. It's an act of preservation. It is the recognition that your emotional bandwidth is limited, and that not everyone gets equal access to it. When you step back from someone who drains you, frustrates you, or continually crosses boundaries, you're not being unkind, you're choosing equilibrium. You are acknowledging that your mental and emotional health matter enough to protect. You can speak gently and still decline. You can remain polite and still walk away. You can love someone and still limit their influence on your life. Kindness is the tone you use. Availability is the space you allow. They are not the same, and you never have to sacrifice one to maintain the other. What often keeps people trapped in harmful cycles is the belief that withdrawing or setting limits will make them appear uncaring. But staying endlessly available to those who mistreat you is not kindness. It's self-neglect. The more you ignore your own needs, the more resentment builds beneath the surface, poisoning the very compassion you're trying to preserve. The most genuine kindness comes from a whole, grounded, rested heart, not one that is stretched thin and emotionally exhausted. There is also a quiet strength in choosing selective availability. When you limit how much access someone has to your energy, you show them and yourself what your time is worth. You make it clear that kindness does not mean compliance, and compassion does not mean constant sacrifice. This shift doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious to give from a place of intention instead of obligation. Ultimately, staying kind without staying available is an act of balance. It protects your heart without closing it. It allows you to offer warmth without losing your sense of self. It makes room for compassion without compromising your peace. And when you master this balance, you discover that kindness becomes more powerful, not because you give more of it, but because you give it from a place of strength, clarity, and self-respect. Not everyone deserves full access to you because as access is a form of intimacy and emotional, mental, or energetic, is something that should be earned, not assumed. Too many people grow up believing that being open, available, and endlessly giving is a sign of strength or goodness. But over time, you learn that access is actually one of the most valuable things you can offer. Your time, your attention, your emotional availability, your presence, these are sacred resources. When you give them to everyone without discernment, you end up depleted, drained, and disconnected from your own needs. Limiting access isn't about judging others harshly, it's about understanding that not everyone has the capacity, maturity, or intention to handle you with care. Some people take without giving. Some gossip when you're not around. Some use vulnerability as leverage. Some show up only when they need something, and some simply lack the emotional awareness to meet you where you are. None of this makes them bad. It just means they shouldn't sit in the front row of your life. When you allow the wrong people too much access, your peace becomes negotiable. You start responding to energies that aren't aligned with you. You tolerate conversations that drain you. You accept behavior that chips away at your confidence. And sometimes, without noticing, you begin living in reaction to people who have no business influencing your emotional world. That's how access becomes costly. Not in money, but in energy, clarity, and self-worth. Healthy access is something that the right people honor. They respect your time. They don't demand emotional labor you can't give. They ask instead of expect. They communicate instead of manipulate. They care about how their presence impacts you. These are the people who earn deeper connection because they treat your access as a privilege, not a right. But maintaining selective access requires courage. It means being willing to step back when someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries. It means allowing distance where there is disrespect. It means not explaining yourself endlessly to people committed to misunderstanding you. It means recognizing that you can love someone from afar without allowing them close enough to disrupt your peace. When you limit access, you protect the parts of you that are still healing. You preserve the energy you need to grow. You create space for the relationships that support you, uplift you, and challenge you in healthy ways. And perhaps most importantly, you teach yourself that you are worth protecting. Not everyone deserves the unfiltered version of you. Some people get the polite version. Some get the brief version. Some get the limited version. And some get no version at all. That's not cruelty. It's discernment. It's emotional maturity. It's understanding that your life is not a public space. It is a gated home. And you decide who gets the keys. When you embrace this truth, something powerful happens. Your relationships deepen, your peace expands, your confidence grows, and your life aligns with people who can meet you with the same respect and care you offer them. That is what selective access is really about. Not shutting people out, but honoring your worth enough to choose who you let in. Reclaiming your peace is a personal responsibility because no one else can protect your inner world the way you can. For a long time, many people wait for circumstances to calm down, for others to change, or for life to become easier before they finally choose peace. But peace is not something that arrives on its own. It's something you actively create, defend, and rebuild, sometimes daily. It's not a gift someone hands you, it's a boundary truth you honor, a standard you uphold. When you realize this, you stop outsourcing your well-being to people who are never meant to hold it. Taking responsibility for your peace begins with acknowledging what disrupts it. It means being honest about the people who drain you, the environments that stress you, the habits that keep you stuck, and the stories you tell yourself that make suffering feel familiar. Peace doesn't disappear accidentally. It gets chipped away by unnoticed patterns, unspoken resentments, and unhealed wounds. Reclaiming it requires the courage to face these things head on, not with blame, but with ownership. It means saying, this is affecting me, and I have the right to change it. When you take responsibility for your peace, you stop expecting toxic relationships to magically become healthy. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop hoping that someone else's approval will finally settle your insecurities. Instead, you begin to build a life where your emotional safety isn't dependent on unpredictable people or unstable circumstances. This shift is powerful because it returns control to where it always belonged, within you. Reclaiming peace also means learning to regulate your internal world. It's choosing not to react to everything that pokes at your wounds. It's stepping away instead of engaging in arguments that go nowhere. It's declining invitations to chaos, even when chaos is familiar. It's allowing silence to speak for you when confrontation would only drain you. It's choosing to protect your energy even when your ego wants to prove a point. This is the maturity that peace requires. Sometimes reclaiming your peace means making difficult decisions, letting go of relationships that hurt, walking away from environments that no longer serve you, or ending patterns you once depended on for survival. It requires grieving old versions of yourself, the ones who tolerated too much and received too little. But every time you choose your peace over someone else's comfort, you reclaim a part of yourself you once abandoned. The most important truth is this: peace is not passive. It demands intention, it demands boundaries, it demands self-respect, but it also rewards you with clarity, emotional strength, and a deeper connection with yourself. When you take responsibility for your peace, you no longer hand your power to people who misuse it. You become the guardian of your inner world, the architect of your emotional landscape, and the protector of your own soul. And that is where true peace is found, not in perfection, not in control, but in the brave decision to honor yourself every single day.